Today we will be addressing the issue of gun control. This is an important issue today in American politics because the country is split in two on the issue, creating a huge debate. This issue raises questions of the constitutional rights granted by our founding fathers. The Second Amendment to keep and bear arms is in question and in danger.
Mr. President.
Republican leader.
Today the Senate will vote on whether to invoke cloture on proceeding to S-649. I will vote against invoking cloture, and I'd like to explain why. I believe the government should focus on keeping firearms out of the hands of criminals and those with mental issues that could cause them to be a threat to our society. The government should not punish or harass law-abiding citizens in the exercise of their Second Amendment rights. Unfortunately, S-649 has the focus entirely backwards. For example, the background check portion of S-649 is Senator Schumer's bill that the Judiciary Committee reported out on a party line basis. The aim of that bill, from its plain terms, could not be more clear. Section 121, the purpose section, provides that the aim of the bill is to require Americans to undergo background checks for, quote, all sales and transfers of firearms, end quote. If they don't, it's a federal crime. Again, the requirement applies to all sales and even transfers of all firearms. And with very few exceptions, that is exactly what S-649 does. Federal offenses: an uncle giving his nephew a hunting rifle for Christmas, a niece giving her aunt a handgun for protection, a cousin loaning another cousin his hunting rifle if the loan occurs just one day before the beginning of hunting season, or one neighbor loaning another a firearm so his wife can protect herself while her husband is away. Now, the people I'm describing are not criminals. They're neighbors, friends, and family. And the scenarios I'm describing are not fanciful. They happen countless times in our country. But the Schumer bill would outlaw these transfers, and it would make people like these criminals. But there are other problems with the legislation from the senator from New York. Under his legislation, it's a crime for someone who lawfully possesses a firearm not to report a lost or stolen firearm to both the appropriate local authorities, whoever they are, and the Attorney General within 24 hours. Now, people should report firearms that are lost or stolen, but are we really going to make their failure to do so within 24 hours a federal crime that is punishable by up to 5 years in prison? What if the person thinks the firearm is misplaced, not lost or stolen, but the person is actually wrong about that? And what if the person comes to the realization after 2 days instead of 1? And if they report the lost or stolen firearm to their sheriff, assuming he's one of the undefined appropriate local authorities, why is it a crime if they don't report it to the Attorney General? And why would the provision target only those who lawfully possess firearms rather than criminals who don't lawfully possess them? Mr. President, I could go on and list other problems with S-649, but I think I've made my point. This bill is a clear overreach that will predominantly punish and harass our neighbors, our friends, and our families. So to protect the rights of law-abiding citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky and of other states, I will oppose invoking cloture on S-649. I yield the floor.
There should be minimal gun control because criminals will always find a way to get their hands on a gun. And if we abolish the right to have or own a gun, law-abiding citizens will be defenseless and have no way of protecting themselves. Also, if a criminal knows the victim has a gun, they are less likely to attack the victim. The Second Amendment also protects an individual's right to carry and own a weapon. And banning guns will create another potential large source of organized criminal revenue, which could create a black market for weapons. Also, questions will be raised like, where will people dispose of the weapons, and can they be broken down eco-friendly and safely if they do pass gun control?
There are some debatable points from the other side. More guns can cause more homicides. Most massacres done in the past 10 years have utilized legal weapons rather than illegal weapons. Banning guns could possibly save lives. Assault weapons are not sport, like some gun enthusiasts claim. There's no reason to own an AR-15, pump-action shotgun, or armor-piercing bullets for sport. Another interesting fact is that U.S. gun ownership is the highest in the world.
Piers Morgan was continuing to cite one that Great Britain, which banned guns about 15 years ago, had only 35 gun-related murders in 2011, compared to the United States, which had 11,000. Let's start there, because that number is not correct. According to FBI crime stats for 2011, there were 12,664 homicides in the U.S. Of those, 8,583 were caused by firearms. But of those, 400 are listed as justifiable homicide by law enforcement, 260 justifiable homicide by private citizens. On the other hand, it is true that percentage-wise, Britain has a lower gun homicide rate. With a population of 62.6 million, Great Britain saw 59 gun-related homicides for 2011. Still not the 35 Piers Morgan keeps citing. But that shouldn't be surprising that the gun homicide rate in a country that bans guns would be lower than in a country where guns are not banned. Where the argument falls apart is when you attempt to claim that fewer guns equals less crime. The U.S. has the highest gun ownership rate in the world, an average of 88 guns per 100 people. That puts it first in the world for gun ownership. Yemen is second with 54.8 guns per 100 people. So that means the U.S. has the highest gun murder rate as well, right? Well, no. Honduras, El Salvador, and Jamaica have higher rates. So do 24 other countries. The U.S., despite being number 1 in gun ownership, is number 28 in gun homicide, with a rate of 2.97 per 100,000 people. Of course, Piers Morgan isn't calling for the U.S. to be more like El Salvador and Honduras. He's calling for us to be more like Great Britain. So what do the numbers look like there? The U.K. has the second highest overall crime rate in the EU. The U.K. has the 5th highest robbery rate, the 4th highest burglary rate. But more importantly, the EU named Britain as the most violent country in the EU. In the UK, there are 2,034 violent crimes per 100,000 people. That puts it way ahead of even South Africa, with a rate of 1,609 per 100,000. In the United States, we're not even in the top 10. The U.S. has a violent crime rate of 466 crimes per 100,000 residents. So what this means for you is that while people like Morgan insist that the U.S. can learn from Great Britain, well, maybe we can. What we might learn is that violent crime is not the result of a gun or any tool. It is the result of the heart of men and women.